Hello, I'm Gary York, author of Corruption Behind Bars and Inside the Inner Circle. I'm also a columnist for corrections1.com, and you're now watching me either on corrections1.com or my YouTube channel. And I would ask for you to please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you enjoy this video and other training videos that I have as well on my YouTube channel. Today I'm very excited. I'm in downtown Las Vegas, Nevada for the Corrections USA convention with Anthony Ganji from Tier Talk, and he has got a panel that he has put together, and I'm one of those panel members, so I'm honored to be on that panel with him. And I'm also here with several other people, and one of them is Mr. Keith Helwig, a retired captain from the Wisconsin Corrections Department. He is also the author of No Place Like Home and Morning Will Come. And I'm very excited to be here with him. We've known each other through social media, but we've never been able to meet in person. And our panel here with Tier Talk and Anthony Ganji has brought us all together in one location, and I'm able to actually sit down and get an interview with Mr. Helwig. And I'm very excited about the interview, and we're going to be live here shortly from Las Vegas, Nevada, Corrections USA Convention. Keith, as I said earlier, I'm very happy to be here in downtown Las Vegas, Nevada with you, and we're here at the Corrections USA Convention, and I'm proud to be a panel member with you tomorrow, and Anthony Ganji and the Tier Talk crew. Good to finally meet you in person, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. I wanted to talk, if we could, about staff shortages, which is something that affects the entire country in our prison system, and the impact that it has on our correctional officers at work being short-staffed and working long hours. For example, at Birdie Correctional Institution in North Carolina back in April of 2017, Megan Callahan was killed by an inmate with a fire extinguisher. And later on in the year in North Carolina at another correctional institution, we lost Justin Smith, Veronica Darden, Wendy Shannon, and Jeffrey Howe at the hands of inmates. And we learned that one of the correctional institutions, Birdie Correctional, was 20% understaffed, and the other North Carolina correctional facility was 25% understaffed and working in critical condition. With your experience as a captain and being retired from the Wisconsin Corrections Facility, have you ever had to deal with short staff, and how do you think it affects our correction officers?
I think staff shortage is a problem which affects us nationwide, if not worldwide. It's hard to find people that are willing to work weekends, holidays, their kids' birthdays, all different kinds of things. It affects us adversely. Officers are putting in tremendous amount of hours. I know officers that have put in addition to their regular 2,000 hours a year, have put in 1,500 hours of overtime. And a lot of it's not voluntary overtime. I know people in Wisconsin, they can be ordered for 2 days and then they have to have a day off. So they'll be ordered for 16 hours, work 8 hours, ordered for 16 hours, work 8 hours, ordered for 16 hours. That's been happening in a lot of the facilities. It really undermines staff morale. It undermines staff safety. They're short-staffed. The people that are there for that many hours are certainly trying to do their job, but it's hard to be diligent. You've been in it long enough, you know that there comes a point where you hit that wall. And when you hit that wall, you're not as conscientious of what's going on around you. You're not aware of your situation around you, and things are going to happen. And it's happened in North Carolina. I'm in no way blaming any of that on the officer. I'm not blaming it on anybody else. But short-staffed, I'd say that directly contributes to things like this happening. Staff get exhausted, staff fall asleep. Now that I'm retired, it's interesting. I get together with a group of officers, some of them are retired, and they were all officers that worked for me. And they really ran into some resistance when they still worked at the institution and we'd get together for breakfast, because they'd say they were sucking up to the captain or whatever, which was a bunch of baloney because we rarely talked about it. One of the individuals in particular, Scott. Scott's a good friend of mine. Scott worked a ton of overtime. He did a lot of it by choice, but it wasn't always by choice. Well, now that we're both out of this system, Scott said to me a couple times that there were times where probably a third of the shift was asleep or in a state of exhaustion where things could happen. Luckily, it was a maximum security facility. There were a couple medium units where inmates had run of their cells. They could come in and out, but inmates were locked in. But we have to remember that a part of our job as a correctional officer isn't just watching for our safety, it's watching for the inmate's safety. So if an officer's sleeping and they're not making rounds, not only does it endanger them if they're in a medium facility where inmates have access to them, but it's creating a danger to the inmates too. If you're not checking those inmates for suicide, if you're not checking them for psychological or physical distress, we've had people had heart attacks. I'm sure you've run into that at work.
Right.
They've had heart attacks. People have hung themselves. People have slashed their wrists, cut their throats, whatever. If you're sleeping and you don't catch that, who's going to be in trouble?
Right.
Who's going to be in trouble? It's not going to be the administration that's in trouble. It's going to be you as the officer that's in trouble because you weren't fulfilling your duties. Well, unfortunately, that's hard to do sometimes when you're operating on 4 hours of sleep a day so you can go back and work 16 hours.
And I really appreciate what you're saying, because I just did a video that correctional officers must be mentally and physically tough, and talked a little bit about exercise, and I talked about being alert and to have peripheral vision and watch everything coming at you from all angles. But with these many hours working and this much staff shortage, it's hard to do that, isn't it? It's hard to stay mentally and physically alert when your body is just drained from working so many hours.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. And the thing that's happening right now is that states are hiring out of desperation. They're trying to fill spots. I know in Wisconsin, the last I heard, there were roughly 500 correctional officers short. The facility that I'd left had a corps of approximately 450 officers. That's officers, officer twos, sergeants, captains, and lieutenants. The last I heard, there were almost 100 openings at that institution alone. That's a quarter of their staff that's down. That means that there's a quarter of positions every day that have to be filled by overtime. A lot of the times, it's not overtime people want. It's people that they have to stay. You know, a lot of people, particularly people on the outside, don't realize that when you work in a prison, it has to keep running 24 hours a day. You can't turn off the coffee pot, shut off the machine, and go home. There's got to be somebody there 24 hours a day. Those posts have to be manned 24 hours a day. You can't just leave. People don't realize that. Well, when you're working 16-hour days, 5 days a week, plus your regular shifts, and sometimes people get ordered on weekends at various institutions on their days off, there's just no way that you can maintain the mental or the physical acuity to do that job efficiently.
And I can vouch for the state of Florida is exactly the same. Not just in the prison system, but in the jails. There's mandatory overtime. You will work 1 day every 2 weeks, mandatory, and so forth. And I can tell you right now that the Secretary of the Florida Department of Corrections has been begging legislature, begging them to allow more positions and allow her to hire something like 4,600 more officers. And she's just had a heck of a time trying to get legislature to give her the money to do this. And my opinion is also that management needs to get after legislature and our representatives to fight harder and to try to focus them on our problem. And how many deaths will it take before our legislature finally realizes that we need to allocate the money and let them get more people? I mean, do you agree that we need to do that? Or?
I do agree with that. Too often it's management by disaster. If things are running smoothly, nothing happens. Things are going okay. Nobody's been getting killed. Nobody's been getting seriously assaulted. Nobody's been getting hurt. Everything's fine. But there's never money for training until something happens. I can recall 2 different occasions in my career where there was never any money for training. For a while, we were mandated to do a minimum of 4 hours of emergency response training a month. That's our SWAT teams, or emergency response units. We were mandated to do 4 hours a month. They could save it up to do 8 hours every 2 months. That went on for maybe 2 years. Then the money fell off. Then there was a riot. There was a riot at a maximum security institution. They ended up burning down an industries building. They ended up burning down a library. Several staff members were abused sexually, physically, emotionally. In fact, one of the staff members that was a hostage had worked After that, he went over to work at the Dodge Correctional Institution. His name was Dale Strege. Dale Strege was a hostage, and he disappeared one day. They never found hide nor hair of him. He left his keys, his cell phone, everything. He just left. He was living with the trauma of being a hostage. But after those incidents, they had money coming out of their ears for training. I got sent to a 2-week FBI hostage negotiation school after the first one because they realized that they needed hostage negotiations trainers. We had training up the butt after that disaster. Well, a few years go by, everything's running smoothly again, the money falls off, the training falls off. Bam, there's another disaster at another maximum security institution, another disturbance. I was called to the ERU on that one. We went up there and, we won, we always win. But then again, money suddenly appeared out of nowhere for all this training. Unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, fortunately, nothing has happened since then of a major portion. Unfortunately, training money has dried up. The emergency response units, if they get out 1 or 2 times a year, that's it. In Wisconsin, I can't say how it is in other states. Now the guys that are on it are guys that are volunteered to be on it. They want to be on it. They want the training. They want to do a good job. Their instructors are good instructors, but they just don't give them the money to go out and do the training. And that affects the security of the institution. I don't know how it is in Florida. I know some other states depend on the state police or whatever. If there's a disturbance in the prisons. Wisconsin doesn't. In Wisconsin, if there's a disturbance in the prison, the Department of Corrections is going to handle it. Now they're going to use outside law enforcement agencies for perimeter patrol. They may use them to, well, at the one I recall, the State Patrol. It's funny, the State Patrol was in charge of the old man's crew that had to make up food. And the headlines in the newspaper the next day said, State Patrol calls riot at Waupun. Their contribution was making sandwiches and drinking coffee. But in Wisconsin, our corrections departments do it themselves. I don't know if it's that way in all of them. I think it's a good policy. Who knows the institutions better than we do?
Exactly. Right.
But the lack of training is a concern. And I know people, I'm still in touch with people that work in the institutions, and I've had more than one person say to me, it's a boiling pot. And right now with winter, it's a little different. Once summer comes along and the rec yards open up and there's no air conditioning and tensions heat up, they're expecting problems in some of the institutions, and rightfully so, they're concerned about it.
Exactly.
And I wish people in upper administration would say, you know what, we got to get these people trained, we've got to get people hired, we've got to do something to attract people. In Wisconsin, they've pretty much they've disbanded the union. And I've got pros and cons on the union. There were good things about the union, there were bad things about the union. They don't have any collective bargaining power, so the pay of the officers has been stagnant for a number of years now. It's fallen way behind. When I started, back when God was a kid, I made roughly the same as a county officer did. But the benefits were fantastic. I mean, I had free health insurance, free life insurance, I had 13 sick days, I started off with all the vacation, the whole works. Well, over the years, that's eroded. What kept me in the job was the benefits that I had. I love my job. I can't say it's just the benefits that kept me in it, because I love my job. I like being an officer, I like being a sergeant, I like being a captain. But after a while, the pay started dropping behind. But that was okay, because you still had those benefits. You still had the free health insurance. You still had everything going on for you. Well, over the years, they eroded that, and they no longer have that. So they're having a harder time finding people to come in and take those positions. And also the pay has not increased in a significant manner. This sounds absolutely horrible, but we have 2 maximum security prisons in a city called Waupun. There's also a minimum security prison in Waupun. So you've got 3 correctional institutions in Waupun. 15 miles away, there's a Walmart distribution center, a warehouse. A person working at Waupun, Dodge, or the Burke Center will start out at a little over $16 an hour. They will work 24 hours a day. They will work weekends, holidays, birthdays. They will basically have no life for the first couple of years. Or they can go to the Walmart distribution center and they can get $15 an hour, and they work 5 days a week.
And great benefits.
And great benefits.
Yeah.
Which one are you going to take if you're a young man?
And ladies and gentlemen, we know about Wisconsin, we know about Florida, and we know about North Carolina. We know the situation is the same across the country. So let me tell you, we need to help our officers. The staff shortages, the long hours, and the training that we're taking away from our officers is actually causing deaths. And that may sound harsh, but it's the truth. And if you do not believe that it's causing deaths, just take North Carolina, for example, and take other incidents that have happened across the country. All you have to do is Google escape attempts or officer deaths, correctional officers killed. That's all you have to do. Don't go any further back than 3 years and study each article, and you will see that one of the main reasons that officers were killed was staff shortage. Another reason officers were killed was complacency. Another reason officers were hurt was because they're tired and they're worn out and they can't be mentally and physically strong. Please, let's get together and let's work together, and let's get these darn people in legislation and our congressmen we have to get it through their heads to give us the money to hire more correctional officers. What we wanted to do tonight is just get you thinking about how staff shortages are killing officers across the United States. And you can say no all you want to, but there's tons of proof out there. And we don't have time tonight to sit here and give you every statistic and every story. Just Google it and learn for yourself. And then ask your managers, why aren't we doing something to fix this problem? And let's see if we can get something going. Before we finish tonight, I would like you to look at Captain Keith Helwig's books, Morning Will Come and No Place Like Home. Keith, could you tell the folks out there where they can find your books?
You can find my books on my website, which is www.helwigbooks.com. They're also available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or if you'd like a signed and autographed copy, you can get it from me at Post Office Box 1734, Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, 54936-1734.
And folks, I hope that you can walk away from this video today with something to take to your managers, congressmen, and legislature. And remember, when you vote, that's a big thing. When you vote, vote for people who say they will back us up. They don't always do what they say, but hey, if they say they will help corrections, that's better than nothing. Let's get these people in Congress and legislature that will help us and not forget about us and leave us out here to be short. Thank you very much for listening.